So we're entering Shabbat in a mad world. It's a pretty distraught and depressing picture that's going on around us in certain ways, certainly. Just want to speak briefly tonight about an aspect of Purim and its coincidence, this Shabbat with Kitisa, with the Parsha tomorrow morning that we'll be reading about. Tonight is Shushan Purim, tonight's the special Purim, the day after Purim. Purim, of course, the only holiday in the Jewish canon that gives you multiple choice depending on where you're living. 4 different dates in the calendar for your options depending on where you live and the marketplace. Purim, the holiday of instability and confusion and options and uncertainties and reversals. It coincides with Parshat Kitisa, which is most famous for the rupture that occurs in the middle of the Parsha. We'll get to that in a second. But the little known fact about Purim that if you didn't grow up in a particular world, the world that I grew up in, Orthodoxy, maybe conservative Jews, but I don't think it's a very well-known idea that Purim is a holiday of revelation. That Purim is not only a holiday that commemorates a pseudo-historical event that took place in Persia with characters that seem clearly not to have ever lived, but who knows? You never know. But Purim, in the rabbinic mind, is a Kabbalat Torah. It's a time when Torah was received. According to the rabbis in Masechet Megillah and Tractate Megillah, when the Jews originally received Torah on Mount Sinai, it wasn't entirely volitional. It wasn't entirely of their own choice. There was something compulsory about it, something coercive about it. It's a well-known midrash, a well-known rabbinic folktale expansion that there was a kind of mountain hanging over the Jewish people's heads, and God said, receive Torah or it's over. This is your burial place. Shamtei kvuratchem. This very strange rabbinic idea that somehow Torah was compulsory. It's a beautiful idea in certain ways. Sometimes truth is so coercive that you really don't have a choice. Sometimes what is obvious, once having been seen, doesn't leave you with options. But let's just bracket that. And the rabbinic idea emerges based on a verse at the end of the Megillah where it says that the Jews kimu v'kiblu, they upheld and they received all that Mordechai had commanded, and the rabbis in their prayerful, playful way say they kiblu, they received. That sounds a lot like receiving Torah. Something in Purim was the rabbi's mind, something about Purim was going back to receive it in a different way. This time with desire, with chukah, with ratzon. This time with acceptance, options. There's something about Purim in the rabbinic mind which is an altogether mirror image, the opposite of Mount Sinai becomes the locus of a new Sinai, a new moment of revelation. So let's think about that for a second. The story of Purim is a story where there is no mountain, there's no God showing up on the mountain. In fact, God's name is not mentioned even once in the story. Miracles are not obvious if they are miracles at all. Everything is happening by subterfuge, by hidden layers, by concealment. If Sinai is the revelation at Sinai, Megillat Esther and Purim is the concealment in Persia. Nothing obvious is happening. To the naked eye, you would walk right by and say, oh, that's a nice little story. Or maybe not such a nice little story, but a story. So the rabbinic understanding of Purim is this: that when God's plan is hidden and when meeting is obtuse, when it's difficult to discern a pattern, when all seems lost, that the Torah that we learn from that is a Torah that we have to absolutely make an effort to receive. We have to work at it. We have to agree to it. The Torah of Purim is a Torah of holding out hope when things look very, very bad. The Torah of Purim is that it's not always going to be from the outside that things will save us, that something supernatural will come along, but that there is holiness in the messiness of what it is to survive. And that in order to be a believer, one must be able, in the words of the philosopher Paul Ricoeur, who was quoting from someone else, to have second naivete. Second naivete was Ricoeur's way of saying that once critical theory and the hermeneutics of suspicion came along, we no longer believe everything the texts tell us, Santa Claus, all of the myths of the religious traditions. Once we see through them as historical truth, our belief begins to teeter-totter. We find ourselves on unfirm ground, as if all of our structures have been pulled out from beneath us. And Ricoeur argued that for postmoderns, we can't live our lives jettisoning all of the baby that was with the bathwater of pre-modern mythical and mythological systems. We need myth, we need stories, we need meta-narratives, we need big truths, we need Torahs. But what do you do when the Holocaust takes 11 of your children like the Klosenberger Rebbe? What do you do on October 7th when your belief in the state will save us, the state will protect us? What do you do when something that you held so dearly and so clearly as your lifeline, you are literally disillusioned? And we use that as a pejorative. Oh, they're so disillusioned. But for Ricoeur, disillusionment was good. To be disillusioned meant to come out of your illusion, to shift your perspective. The Torah of Purim is not a Torah of coercion, because no one's going to coerce us anymore. We have to come to this Torah on our own. We tried everything, and it didn't work. And so Paul Ricoeur said we have to have born in us a second naivete, holada shenit, in the language of, in Hebrew, holada shenit. We need to be born again, but a different kind of born again. I don't mean that. A different born again. We need to be born back into faith, not a child's faith, not the faith of those who haven't known what it is to come up against doubts or critique, or those who have lost their faith, who have lived lives without faith in love, faith in goodness, faith in freedom. It doesn't have to be God. Faith. And so Purim is the celebration of receiving Torah and being reborn. A Torah that comes not from the mountain and not from something outside, but from the hard facts of living a life without that Torah. To be born again. A Torah that emerges out of chaos, a Torah that emerges out of confusion, a Torah that emerges out of heartbreak and disappointment, a Torah that could come only from the margins, from an Esther who knew what it was to hide, an Esther who knew what it was to be deployed. Megillat Esther, the revelation of Esther. born again. Purim is revelation of Torah, and a stronger one it is, channeling my inner Yoda. A stronger one it is. A more powerful Torah. In fact, our tradition tells us that Purim is the only holiday that in the end of days will still be around. Imagine them saying that. A holiday without God, a holiday without miracles, a holiday. No, I would argue, I mean, they didn't ask me, but if they would have, I would have argued, I don't know, Pesach. I know what do you think? We should take a poll in the room. Pesach, who says Pesach should be there until the end? Pesach. No, Pesach, Pesach. Liberation, freedom, miracles, blood, water turns to blood. Shavuos, I don't know, people like Shavuos, Sukkot. We could go through and Purim. First, I have to tell you what they are, because you know all the different holidays. Simchas Torah, maybe Simchas Torah, yeah. No, the rabbis, Maimonides codifies this. It's Purim, because Purim is the Torah that comes in the dark. Purim is the Torah that comes in the exile. Purim is the Torah not at Mount Sinai, but in Persia. Love Persia. I'm nothing against Persia, but that's a story. It happens outside, and it can be wherever you're in exile. To find meaning and purpose in a world that seems chaotic and dangerously so brings us to the golden calf. The golden calf in this week's Torah portion and its aftermath are a traumatic experience in the center of our Torah. The golden calf story is a story of fall from grace, so precipitous, so quick, the rabbis analogize it to someone committing adultery underneath the wedding canopy, under the chuppah, to try to give you a stark experience of how shocking the golden calf story is. Moses, just to remind you, is on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. He's doing good things up there. He's receiving Torah, as far as we know, all of the laws. And the people come to Aaron and they say to Aaron, this guy Moses, we don't know what happened to him. We don't know what happened to Moshe Rabbeinu. He was supposed to be back and it's late. And so Aaron, it's a weird story. Aaron says, take off your golden earrings, and we'll talk about it tomorrow, but somehow there's a golden calf. Now this is a people that 5 minutes ago heard you can't have idols. Moshe, imagine this scene. Moshe comes down, he has divine words etched in stones. The Torah goes out of its way to say they are written be'etz be'elohim. He looks down at them and he says, and he can't believe it. He throws the tablets, vayashlichem, he throws them, he doesn't just drop them. The Torah goes out of its way to say he took energy, threw them down. And then he grinds up the golden calf and then goes back up to the mountain after God says, bring back a second set of tablets. So when we think about revelation at Sinai, we have two revelations already in Sinai. We have the revelation of the first tablets, and then we have a revelation of the second tablets. And which ones are stronger? The second tablets. In the midst of this heartache, tomorrow morning is a little bit of Esther hidden right in the centerpiece. In the middle of the story of this revelation at Sinai, we have a moment where the Jewish people stand outside of their experience, and Moshe responds by destroying the tablets. And so this is precisely the lesson of this juxtaposition of Shushan, Purim, and Kitisa. God will call Moshe back up the mountain and invite him to carve out new tablets. He will teach him that brokenness doesn't have to mean the end. He will say to him often, true healing only begins once things are broken. And so maybe, in the midst of all of our chaos, in the midst of all of the destabilization, in the midst of all of that which is swirling around us each and every moment, There's a call at this moment to find resources that are spiritual, emotional, and communal resilience. To remind ourselves that when something shatters, whether it's our assumptions or our relationships or even our security, it is tempting to see only the destruction and to forget that often the breaking is what allows the new space for possibilities to emerge. The Talmud teaches us that we don't throw away the first tablets, but we keep them together with the broken ones, with the second ones. Shivrei luchos veluchos munachim ba'aron. The tablets are always in the ark. Esther's story and the revelation of Torah through Esther is always with us, as are the broken tablets. And so tonight, as we mix together the wild joy of Shushan Purim with the sober Shabbat of the broken tablets and the golden calf, we are reminded that we too must bring to every moment a commitment to learning Torah in the dark, to not giving up in the face of broken tablets or broken promises, and most importantly, to continue as an act of radical resistance to all that is, to find moments to laugh, even as we honor the complexity that is all around us. May God give us a light to shine into precisely this moment's possibilities, that we might shape them into beautiful places and bring about a more revealed, holy world. Amen.